Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today we're back in the MP Crossroads, and you guys know what that means. Yes, indeed, it is testing time. Today we're going to be looking at Bretonnia and testing a few different things, in some various situations. Yesterday I put out a battle replay of myself playing as Chaos against Bretonnia and kind of talked through some of the issues that people have with Bretonnia. Their infantry is not super cost effective. You're not going to win any infantry engagements, which is a bit of a paradigm shift from Game 1. In Game 1, the Bretonnian peasant infantry horde was very, very powerful and could steamroll a lot of different factions, but nowadays, things have changed, and let's go ahead and see if we can quantify and have a close look at what exactly has changed. So, we're going to be testing up against the Skaven, first off. I figured they would be a decent, kind of counterpart to the Bretonnians because they have a lot of cheap infantry as well. So, for the testing, we've got 3 Storm Vermin going to be facing up against 3 Foot Squires. We've also got 3 Plague Monks going to be facing up against 3 Foot Squires, 3 Plague Monks against 3 Battle Pilgrims. We've also got some Clan Rats with Shields, 3 of those, facing 3 Battle Pilgrims. 3 more Clan Rats with Shields, facing 3 Men-at-Arms with Shields. And 3 regular Clan Rats facing 3 regular Men-at-Arms. So, across the board, the Bretonnian infantry is cheaper, except in the situation of the Clan Rats with Shields up against the Battle Pilgrims. Other than that, everything else, the Skaven infantry are more expensive, and I would expect them to win out. Being the Skaven are kind of an infantry-only faction. I mean, they do have some large units, but mostly they're an infantry-heavy faction, so you would expect them to be able to carry this fight, but let's see exactly how it goes. And we'll kind of grab some cinematics as these 2 massive lines come together here. And the Plague Monk's going to be charging into these Battle Pilgrims here in a very bloody clash. And yeah, beautiful stuff. So let's take a look at how the fight's going. Across the board, you can see Skaven infantry doing very well for the most part. They are trading pretty decently. It's pretty close to even. I mean, Clan Rats are only, 75 points more expensive than Men-at-Arms. And I think the Clan Rats with Shields are maybe 50 points more expensive than their Bretonnian counterparts. The Battle Pilgrims should be winning out here, but it looks like the Plague Monks are absolutely tearing the Battle Pilgrims to shreds. The Foot Squires as well are getting absolutely shredded by the Plague Monks. The anti-infantry bonus of the Plague Monks and, just their great combat stats mean they'll outclass the Foot Squires super hard, despite the Foot Squires' much better armor. The Storm Vermin versus the Foot Squires is the one fight where the Foot Squires seem to be performing reasonably cost-effectively. Obviously Storm Vermin aren't really meant for fighting infantry. They're a halberd-type unit, meaning they're very much designed for fighting cavalry, heavy cavalry especially. But they can potentially stand in an infantry engagement for a minute, but seeing how badly they trade with Foot Squires here, which is one of the worst kind of greatsword units in the game, a little bit underwhelming, I have to say. The Plague Monks won out there, and against the Battle Pilgrims, just not even close. I mean, considering that this is a unit that's 150 points more expensive than the Battle Pilgrims, winning with 50% of its HP left is very bad for the Battle Pilgrims. I mean, it's bad. There's no way around it. Same thing with these Foot Squires here. Foot Squires are an infantry that is designed for killing other infantry, and they lost to an infantry that's 50 points more expensive to about a third to about, I'd say about a third to maybe a half or so of health left on the Plague Monks. So that's, again, not at all cost-effective for the Foot Squires there. Plague Monks are actually a super cost-effective infantry option, so, take that with a grain of salt, but I do think Plague Monks are going to be very good in this matchup. Battle Pilgrims obviously beating the Clan Rats. Clan Rats are 200 points. Clan Rats with Shields are 200 points more expensive. Battle Pilgrims taking home a pretty decisive victory there, so they are still good against fodder tier infantry, but anything higher than fodder, they are going to lose badly to. The Men-at-Arms and Clan Rats is a little bit closer here. You can see the basic Clan Rats won against the basic Men-at-Arms with Shields. Again, not really a cost-effective trade. Clan Rats still had quite a bit of health left. Same thing here, this fight right here is pretty even, but these two are a little bit one-sided, so it does look like the Skaven infantry are going to win out there. But Dov, I hear you say, Bretonnia isn't supposed to be an infantry faction. They're supposed to be a heavy cavalry faction, and you're totally right. I 100% agree with you. I always thought that it was really strange in Total War Warhammer 1 that they were a powerful infantry faction, that you could bring this horde of peasant infantry and, you know, just steamroll a lot of factions. I always thought that was a little bit not thematic. And now with the release of Warhammer 2, obviously the Skaven are the kings of swarming infantry, and, you know, you really can't stand up in that kind of fight as Bretonnia, and this test very much shows that. You know, I don't mind, you know, Bretonian infantry not being wildly cost-effective in every situation. Like, these foot squires here, you can see they were able to kind of trade evenly, more or less, with the storm vermin. One lost, one won, and this one here just barely lost right now. So the foot squires did trade pretty decently there against the storm vermin, but the issue with foot squires is they don't trade with lower tier troops very well, and if the troops are too high tier, you know, like Swordmasters of Hoeth and Executioners of Harganeth and so on, those guys are just going to kill foot squires so fast that they are not cost effective anymore. So they have this kind of weird niche where they're only good against units in a very specific class, you know, like halberd type heavy infantry, which to be honest, there's not too many of them in the game, and storm vermin are kind of one of the lowest tier of them. So I'm not really a fan of foot squires, or battle pilgrims for that matter. I think in almost any situation you can leave those guys at home. So this test is pretty much wrapped up, so let's go ahead and just end it here, and we'll go to the next one. So now we're going to be testing a bit of heavy cavalry. Since Bretonnia is a heavy cavalry faction, let's see how their heavy cavalry stacks up to the High Elves. High Elves, obviously, Dragon Princes are one of the premier heavy cavalry options right now. They're very fast, have heavy armor, physical resistance, a lot of stuff to like. So we've got, over here, we've got 3 Questing Knights with their heavy AP going to be facing up against the Dragon Princes. Questing Knights are an okay unit. I'm not a huge fan of them. They can do okay, but only 80 armor is not a ton. 42 charge bonus is decent. It's not great, but they do have pretty heavy weapon strength and decent combat stats at 38-36 is very respectable. They also are immune to psychology, so there's some to like about them, for sure. They can definitely help support an infantry engagement. We've also got 3 units of Grail Knights. So, Grail Knights are the cream of the crop of, you know, Bretonian cavalry. They are kind of a counterpart to Dragon Princes. Dragon Princes have 80 charge bonus. Grail Knights have 82 charge bonus. You know, obviously Grail Knights have a little bit less armor. They do also have physical resistance with the Blessing of the Lady. However, Grail Knights do have a few key advantages. They have perfect vigor, meaning that in a late game situation when all the other units are getting tired, getting you know, exhausted, these guys are going to continue fighting at full vigor, which means they'll outclass units even more so as the game drags on. They're also immune to psychology. And yeah, they do have an anti-large bonus as well. Whereas the Dragon Princes lack a true anti-large bonus, they do have higher base weapon strength. The Grail Knights, however, carry a bonus versus large of 12, which is not insignificant. It's also worth noting that they have magic attacks, so in a situation like up against the Dragon Princes, they're going to cut right through that 20% physical resistance with their magic attacks, and I'm actually a big fan of Grail Knights. We'll kind of talk through them a little bit more as this fight goes on, and we do have one more group of Bretonnian Knights over here, the tanks of the Bretonnian Knights, the Grail Guardians. So these guys have 120 armor and 56 melee defense, as well as having the perfect vigor, immunity to psychology, and 20% physical resistance of the, you know, Grail type units. They also have, of course, magic attacks, impeccable leadership, not a whole lot of charge bonus and weapon strength, but these guys are more meant as a tank, kind of frontline, you know, stand and bang type unit rather than a pure shock cavalry. So we're testing, you know, the Grail Knights and the Questing Knights up against Dragon Princes. The Grail Guardians we're testing up against one unit of Dragon Princes. We've also got a High Elf Spearman, a White Lion of Trace, and a Phoenix Guard, just to see how they do in all those different situations. So let's go ahead and zoom over here real quick, and we'll catch some of this main engagement here. The Grail Knights versus Dragon Princes is definitely going to be the most beautiful out of all of these. So we'll watch these guys clash together, and absolutely gorgeous. 2 of the best looking units of heavy cavalry in the game, in my opinion. And you can see the Grail Knights are doing very, very well for themselves. They haven't taken quite a bit of shock damage on the charge. You can see in this main center pocket here, they've actually already dropped Martial Mastery. And with Martial Mastery dropped, The Grail Knights have better pure combat stats than the Dragon Princes. They also have the anti-large bonus. They do have slightly less armor, but they're going to win this fight out pretty decisively. Over here on this side, the Questing Knights just don't have the armor and charge bonus to stand up to a head-on charge with an excellent, top-tier shock cavalry like Dragon Princes, so they're getting crushed pretty badly here. But this other side, the Grail Guardians lost the charge pretty decisively, as you would expect, due to their very low charge bonus. But now that they're in that sustained combat, that high melee defense is going to take hold, and we'll see if they're able to win in that engagement. Over here, these Grail Guardians just chunking through, doing actually some pretty nice impact damage considering how low their charge bonus is. Just starting to munch through those white lions. The Spearmen as well, it's going to be a kind of a wet noodle style trade for a while, but it should eventually swing in one side or the other. You can see Grail Knights here, considering they're only 200 points more expensive than, are they 200? 100 or 200? I'll need to double check, I don't quite remember. But, they're only slightly more expensive than the Dragon Princes, so this is a very cost-effective trade for Bretonnia. These Grail Knights just destroying those Dragon Princes is very, very cost-effective. Over here, the Questing Knights didn't get a whole lot of damage done, all things considered. This trade was definitely not cost-effective. You can see all the Dragon Princes got an XP chevron from their kills there, so... Now let's swing over to these Grail Guardians and kind of watch as this fight wraps up here. You can see obviously they're losing to the Phoenix Guard. Phoenix Guard have just such good pure combat stats, as well as having the expert charge defense and physical resistance, so it's going to be hard for the Grail Guardians to make solid contact there. White Lions, on the other hand, don't have that great of pure combat stats, especially when martial prowess drops. The Grail Guardians are actually chewing these guys up really good, despite their lack of armor piercing and other kind of necessary stats you would think. One thing to note though is these guys are active, whereas the Grail Guardians are fresh, so you can see already that Perfect Vigor is starting to come into play a little bit here. Phoenix Guard did win out, but it does look like we'll be able to take down the Spearmen and the White Lions here. This fight is very, very atrocious, and you obviously wouldn't want to leave Dragon Princes in against Grail Guardians. It's worth noting though that Grail Guardians do have 75 speed, which is really, really good for heavy shock cavalry. Dragon Princes have 78 speed, which is, I think, I could be wrong about this, I don't quite remember, but I believe it's the highest of any, the fastest of any heavy shock cavalry in the game. Grail Knights as well have 75 speed, so high speed on a heavy shock cavalry makes a big difference because it allows you to cycle charge more effectively, and you can kind of pull away from disadvantageous engagements and pull back in. You can see here, we'll go ahead and fast forward through the end of this here because this is going to take quite a long time with the unit with 56 melee defense, but that 56 melee defense is actually going to carry these Grail Guardians in this fight, and they're going to be able to pull this back and actually beat those Dragon Princes. So pretty decent for the Grail Guardians, all things considered, and I do think that Grail Knights and Grail Guardians are a unit that, are necessary for you to win as Bretonnia. I really, heavy cavalry is the way to go with Bretonnia right now in this patch. It's still going to be rough. There are some matchups that I think are unsolvable, almost, if you're up against an equally skilled or better skilled player. Let's go ahead and talk through a few things, though. We can kind of come to a conclusion about the paradigm shift that needs to occur in the armies that people are bringing with Bretonnia. So let's go ahead and have a look here, and we'll go to the custom battle screen and talk about some things. So, essentially, the conclusion that I've come up with from this testing, and I've done a lot of battles with Bretonnia, both playing against them and as them, Grail Knights are the answer. Typical builds, the build that Gabo King at least shared with me and that I've found to be very effective, is 3 Grail Knights. You guys will very often see if you watch the channel for any length of time. At least when I'm playing the high alts, I love the triple Dragon Prince build with a nice core of infantry. This allows you to just win decisively almost any mobile engagement out on the flanks. And then you can use the Dragon Princes to cycle charge, rear charge, whatever, support the infantry engagement as need be. I think you need to do the same thing with Bretonnia. Now, Grail Knights are more expensive than Dragon Princes. Dragon Princes are 1,400, Grail Knights are 1,500. But again, these guys have more going for them, actually, than the Dragon Princes do. The anti-large bonus means they're going to be great at diving monsters like dragons and so on. The immunity to psychology is something that Dragon Princes notably lack. So that is a nice addition there, and of course the perfect vigor is going to be critical in a late game engagement, especially if you can keep them alive using Lore of Life. So something like this. We bring the Fey Enchantress, you can bring some healing spells with her to keep the Grail Knights alive. You have the 3 Grail Knights, and then what about Infantry? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. We know for a fact that Bretonnia is going to lose an Infantry engagement in almost any matchup. There's just very few matchups right now, realistically, where they can win an Infantry engagement. Keeping that in mind, we need to then find infantry that are going to be able to hold. We don't need them to win, we just need them to hold so that they can act as an anvil for us to, you know, hammer the rear charges onto. In that vein, let's go ahead and look through our options. So what we're looking for is a unit with high melee defense. And the 2 that jump out immediately are Spearmen-at-Arms with shields, coming in at 38 melee defense for a unit that only costs 350 points, which is really, really nice. Men-at-Arms with polearms have 40 melee defense, however they lack a missile block chance and are 200 points more expensive than the Spearmen-at-Arms with shields, so I'll take 4 Spearmen-at-Arms with shields. We can take 4 Peasant Mobs as well, just to kind of bog things down and muck up the infantry engagement as, you know, your opponent advances. Now with this type of setup, Spearmen-at-Arms with shields, especially if you toss them a couple chevrons, even if you just give them 1 chevron, it puts them up to that 40 melee defense, at least currently. And then these guys will be able to hold the line for quite a long time against even higher tier troops. If we go and look here, I mean, White Lions only have 36 base melee defense. With the martial prowess active, obviously that'd be 38, but still, I mean, they can stand around with higher tier units. Obviously, something like a Swordmaster's still going to wreck them. 46 melee attack is still pretty good, but I mean, the 40 melee defense of these Spearmen-at-Arms with shields with the 1 chevron is the best that you can do in terms of hoping to hold out against an infantry, you know, engagement. So leave the Battle Pilgrims and the Foot Squires at home. Just go ahead and bring these Spearmen-at-Arms with shields. You'll want a Grail Relic to help support their leadership, of course, and you know, then you can kind of customize the rest of your army as you see fit. I like to bring 1 unit of Grail Guardians as well as the 3 Grail Knights. These guys will sit in the front line and kind of just support the infantry engagement and just act as tanks. That way, if the Spearmen-at-Arms do end up crumbling away, these guys can still hold the line there and kind of act as the anvil for the hammer of the Grail Knights. So this is kind of the paradigm shift that I think needs to occur with Bretonnia. Again, the Lizardmen are still going to be a faction that's very, very tough to beat, and it'll be an uphill battle. I mean, this is going to be fairly micro-intensive to have to micro 3 very expensive units of heavy shock cavalry well enough to make them pay off, but it can work. I'm going to be having a battle replay coming out probably in about 12 hours from now that will show me using a similar type build against the vampires and doing very, very well with it. And I do think that this is the way to go with Bretonnia. So let me know what you guys think. Go ahead and give it a try and tell me your thoughts. If this is the kind of content you want to see, go ahead and hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.